Hello everyone. It is week 23 of our CSA shares. It is the last A week, so if you're a half share member, this is your last pickup week. We have one more week next week, which is week 24, and that will be the last B week pickup. I'm going to jump right into what's in our shares this week and how to store each item. So we have onions. These get stored in a cool, dry place. They can be used in pretty much anything. They can be eaten raw or they can be cooked. They can be roasted. They can be used in soups. They can be used in stir fries. You can pickle onions. Great raw on salads if sliced really thin. There'll be some other items that we'll talk about that they'll pair really well with. But these get stored in a cool, dry place. We also received garlic. So our garlic gets stored in a cool, dry place as well, and another great seasoning for lots of dishes. Both of these will store fairly well long term. They're great for broths. Garlic is really good for dressings, also really good for our greens. You can do a pickled garlic. You can do roasted garlic, so chop off the top, put the whole clove in foil and throw it in the oven and roast it, and that's really good to spread on breads and things like that. Garlic is good for just about everything. I add garlic to lots and lots of stuff, and in fact a lot of recipes I double the garlic. So that's our garlic and our onions. We have regular potatoes. So let me look, hold on, I forgot these are. So these are Kennebec potatoes. Stored in a cool, dry place, but we do want to keep them away from our onions and garlic. So these give off moisture, so if we put these in the same bin as our onions and garlic, we're gonna, the onions and garlic won't last as long. So these are good roasted, they're good in soups, they're good grilled. So if we get some warm days and you're grilling, these are really good grilled. They're good sauteed, and they'll pair really well with both the onion and garlic. So cool, dry place, you can use them for lots of different things. Really good, this version of our potatoes is really good for French fries also. So you could do French fries in the air fryer, you could do them in the oven or on the stove top. So that's another option as well. We have sweet potatoes. Same idea as the potatoes. They get stored in a cool, dry place away from our onions and our garlic. Sweet potatoes are definitely named because they are much sweeter than regular potatoes. So you can kind of basically take a recipe and sub out a sweet potato. You're just gonna get, instead of a regular potato, you're just gonna get a much sweeter version. So you can roast these, you can put them in soups, you can put them in stews. They definitely have a sweet flavor, hence the name. So you're gonna want to, like if you're putting them in a soup or a stew, know that they'll add some sweetness to your soups or stews. You can boil these and mash them just like you would a regular potato, so mashed sweet potatoes. You can bake them and do a baked sweet potato. These store really well, so cool, dry place for those. Okay, we have our popcorn again. Our popcorn is best stored in a glass dish, so transfer that into a glass dish and throw this in your freezer, and it will last for months. Last week's recipes showcased our popcorn, lots of different ways to, I give you a stovetop version of how to pop it, and then also a microwave version. I much prefer the stovetop version. And then lots of different topping ideas, and then a dessert idea for the popcorn. So take a look at that if you haven't already tried it, but our popcorn will last a long time. So that gets stored ideally in the freezer. Okay, so transfer this to a glass jar. Okay, we have kale. So kale gets stored in the fridge in a plastic bag. So if you have Debbie Meyer green bags, throw it in a Debbie Meyer green bag. Kale can be eaten raw or it can be cooked. It can be sauteed. You can make kale chips in the oven. You can do like a kale Caesar salad, a massaged kale salad. You can just saute it as a side. So sauteed with the garlic and onions are really good. And you can also add it to soups. So we're hitting soup season, so there's lots of things you can put in soups. So that's our kale. We have bok choy. Our bok choy also gets stored in a plastic bag in the fridge. So when we cook our bok choy, ideally you want to take the stem, the white stem part off. Separate that out. It's edible, but it cooks at a different time than the leaves. So separate that, chop it up, and then separate the leaves, chop that up. Your stems are going to take longer to cook, and then the leaves are going to take less time. So put those stems in first. Great for stir fries, great as just a side. You can cook this up with your onions and your garlic. You can throw this into soups. We've seen a few ramen recipes, so this is really good for ramen. So that's an option as well. We have leeks. So these are new this week. These have an onion flavor, so they can replace onions. They don't caramelize like onions, so don't burn them, don't overcook them. Really awesome for soups. What you want to do is store them in a plastic bag in the fridge. If you know what you're going to do with them already, you can chop off the bottom, so where it starts to lighten up, chop this section off, throw that in a plastic bag, store that in the fridge, and that's the section you're going to use for your onion dishes, either sauteed, or they can actually, your inner, the inner pieces that are a little bit more tender are really good when they are raw, so you can use them raw. Your upper leaves are really awesome to season, so the really green parts are really good for veggie broth or any of your broths to season soups. So leeks, the way they grow, they're gonna have a lot of dirt in them, so they've been rinsed off, but you're really gonna wanna rinse them and soak them before you cook with them. So store them in the fridge, either whole like this or with the top section separate from the bottom section, totally up to you. Once you go to use them, soak them really well for a good 10 to 15 minutes, shake them, kind of separate out the leaves. If you're not using them as rings and can slice it in half and really separate it out to make sure you're getting all of the dirt out. And then the bottom can be sauteed. They can be, leeks can actually be grilled. And like I said, the top is best in broths or soups flavoring. We have arugula again. So arugula is stored in the fridge. Amazing raw, just as a salad. I like to keep arugula salads nice and simple because I think the flavor of arugula is amazing. We're seeing a lot of arugula-based salads with beets on tops, roasted beets or pickled beets on top, because they're in our shares this week as well. This gets stored in the fridge just like this, preferably unwashed. It's gonna last longer if we keep it unwashed. Once you wash it, you're gonna wanna use it within a day or two. You can also add this to pastas or stir fries, and if you do that, you wanna add it towards the end, so you just wanna wilt the greens. It's really good in like a pasta dish at the very end. You can add that. Okay, we also have our salad mix. It's a I think I'm saying that right, green mix. Same idea as the arugula. So we want to store it in plastic in the fridge until we're ready to use it, wash it, and within a day or two use the washed greens. Once the greens have moisture on them, they're not going to last as long. So wash them when you're ready to use them. Great for salad mixes. So we have lots of awesome fall items that you can top your salads with. Okay, we have butternut squash this week. Butternut squash will be the featured item in our recipe for Thursday, so hold on to that. Butternut squash stores really well, so cool, dry place. You can roast butternut squash just by cutting it in half, scooping out the seeds and throwing it in the oven like that. You can also chop it in half, pull out the seeds, and then cube it. You don't want to eat we don't eat the skin of the butternut. So you can either peel that after you roast it or peel it before you roast it. Once roasted, you can just serve it as a side. There's awesome soup recipes for butternut squash. It's creamy. If you're not going to use it all, you can puree the squash and then freeze it, and that saves really well. So butternut squash, if you find a recipe you love and it calls for a different squash, you really can kind of sub out butternut or any of the other squashes, winter squashes we've had. The flavor will be slightly different, but they work pretty well. The only one that wouldn't really work is like a spaghetti squash, because that has a completely different texture. Okay, a couple more items. We have purple top turnips. Easy to recognize the difference between a purple top turnip and a watermelon radish, because they literally are named because the tops are purple. So we've got a purple top, and then they kind of fade into the white bottoms. Turnips are great roasted. You can do like sheet pan roasted vegetables. That would be really good. They are great. You can slice them really thin and roast them that way. I like to chop them into chunks. They can also be put into soups and stews. This gets stored in the fridge in your crisper drawer, and these will last a while. Okay, I think we're down to 2 more items. We got beets this week. So beets will store for a while. They're stored in a plastic bag or in the crisper drawer in your fridge. You can boil beets, you can roast beets, you can pickle beets. You can eat them raw, so you can grate them up and do like a beet slaw. You can just grate them up and put them on top of a salad. They do not need to be cooked. They just typically are cooked or pickled. But these get stored in the fridge. And there's recipes for pickled beets on the blog. Last but not least, we have our watermelon radishes. These are one of my favorite radishes. When you slice into them, they're beautiful on the inside. They're so colorful. They are amazing raw. So you can slice them really thin and add them to salads. You can grate them and add them to salads. Next week's recipe, I'm pretty sure we'll showcase these. So stay tuned for that for next week. These can also be roasted. I tend to use them raw just because I love the flavor of them raw, and I love the colors. So when you roast them, that color changes a little bit. So I like to showcase the color of them. So these get stored same as our turnips and our beets in the fridge in our crisper drawer, and they will last a while as well. So in terms of what you should use first in our shares, you should definitely focus on using the arugula and the salad mix, and probably next up would be the kale and the bok choy. Everything else will last quite a while. If you're still have items from last week, focus on using those first. If you're struggling with something and not sure what to use or how to use an item from previous shares, reach out in the Facebook group and we'll help and guide you. There's been tons of recipes and sharing going on there. So continue to share and showcase what you're using your produce for. Okay, last but not least, we have the CSA renewal, the early bird renewal, happening right now. So if you know you want to join the CSA for next year and want to reserve your spot, please do that. There's been several emails that have gone out explaining what to do, how to do it. There are early bird savings in terms of what it will cost you, and also early bird bonuses. So that ends on the 31st. So you have from now until the 31st if you haven't already registered for next year to receive those early bird bonuses. All right, that is it. If you have any questions, please tag me in the post or post in our Facebook group, and we will guide and help you. I will see you all again next week.